much for that, Annette. Good to know what's happening out there in the real world. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Coffee chat underway, I believe is how my partner introduces it.
It is.
So let's do it in his honour. I'm happy to say, by the way, he was unharmed, so that's great.
Yes,
but clearly rather shaken by what was going on. So, I mean, let's look at the papers today, and somebody else, the Pretoria News, Penyazi Lesufi, also looking shaken and distraught. I mean, this is a man who's saying he just actually can't cope with the horrors that he's seen.
Yeah, the Gauteng Education Department seems to be going through what they've been describing as a bad omen. Since the start of the year, we're looking at around 15 deaths that the Gauteng Education Department has had to essentially help families through, as well as help schools through, because after a death, you're going to have to deploy psychosocial services to schools as well as to families. And we know that today, following the death of Enoch Bianzi, we have a report that's due regarding what happened to Enoch at that school camp. And so the Pretoria News is saying that he was addressing a National Press Club meeting and saying that he himself is not coping, which makes sense. You know, I don't think we always think about the leaders themselves who have to actually go out to these schools. And I think, if knowing Lesufi, he always likes to be hands-on and on the ground. Just recently, he was attending to the death of, I think it was 2 or 3 learners after a car crash. So you can imagine the kind of stress the department officials are under, as well as himself having to, you know, deal with all of these deaths as well as these tragedies.
I mean, absolutely right. He really is a hard-working guy who is at the
I think it's just so sad, because I think at the beginning of the school year, his big concern, I remember on that first day when everybody was going back to school, was trying to make sure that everybody gets a place in school, in classes, trying to make sure that enrollment is sorted. But I think, sadly, he probably hasn't even really had a chance to focus on all of that, with what's been happening with all the deaths, with the rapes, even school teachers dying, 4 school teachers died. So I think it's been a lot on his case. And I think also, like you said, the mental health aspect of it is also very important, because he was pointing out that another thing that is quite stressful is the fact that a lot of the schools can't afford to give the kids counselling, and these kids are traumatized. They've lost their classmates and their friends. So, shame, it is a lot for him to handle.
And it seems from the article he is calling for some divine intervention, because a lot of this stuff, it's something the department can't control. You know, it's something else when we're talking about school infrastructure or a teacher assaulting a child or vice versa. But when it's deaths that are genuinely out of your control, just happening at random, a cause for divine intervention at this point, we should all.
Because what else do you
do? What else do you do, essentially?
But you're absolutely right. I mean, we've got so many other things that need to be dealt with at the same time. Schools without roofs, you know, the pit latrines, all that kind of stuff. And then you have this as well. It just seems when it comes to our education system that it's rotten from...
Sad.
Yeah. I think it needs everyone to be involved, from communities themselves, because children are harassed going to school. He speaks about girls having to give out their numbers just to be able to get to school. So I think it needs a multidisciplinary approach. We know that Gauteng schools are also now the places where robbers go to do crime. You know, a lot of the Gauteng schools have been furnished with state-of-the-art classrooms, you know, in order to ensure that education stays at a high level. But now that robbers are entering these schools, it seems that we're going to have to see police intelligence getting involved. I know last week when he was at Ferndale, after another tragic incident where a learner fell to his death after an epileptic seizure, he has called for police intelligence to get on board in terms of ensuring that our schools are safe.
I mean, you would think that schools are sacrosanct, right? I mean,
place for
safest place, but it's not.
Exactly.
And sadly, criminals just see it as easy prey.
Yeah, it's their playground now.
Tough times. In the Star, the Prasa coaches that may be attached. I mean,
this is an
the
interesting
travellers,
story. This is an interesting story, because it seems as always it has to be the man on the ground or the very innocent person who has to basically deal with the consequences. Here is an article by Kaya Koko that sees that the South Gauteng High Court has now essentially dismissed an application by Prasa to not have its assets attached to a court bid by a service provider. It's called Mita's Consulting. They've been providing services, cleaning services, for Prasa for a couple of years, but haven't been paid. And so Mita Consulting has been suffering scoring himself, and decided to take the matter to court. And now it seems that passengers the trains may be halted because those very coaches will be attached to this particular order.
It's a staggering amount of money, 22 million.
22 million rand over 2 years.
So people losing their jobs, people not able to get to their jobs. It's just a lot happening in one situation.
Yeah,
a lot of people affected, like you said, innocent people.
I mean, we did a live broadcast from Cape Town Station, and we were just talking to a lot of the commuters who are just really, again, you know, deeply affected, especially the small businesses who are affected in any kind of transport issues.
Yeah.
And if you look at the sort of economic sabotage as well that we're seeing at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, it is the cheapest mode of transport for a lot of South Africans, and it looks as though PRASA has around 48 hours in order to try and fix this. Otherwise, we're going to see Park Station really becoming a mess. I think the deadline is around tomorrow when we will be seeing trains being halted if nothing is done about this. So it seems PRASA, once again, in hot water with regards to the management of its finances. And the little man always having to take the fault.
You say in hot water, so this leads us, segues nicely to
actually,
faces
to
heat from the ANC.
Yeah, from PRASA to Parliament.
I mean, you don't know whether it's I mean, it's kind of sick on so many levels. You know, if the politicians are behaving in that way.
It is so disturbing.
Attacking their wives, vile. If this is being used for cheap political scoring, equally disgusting.
A line has been crossed there by far.
Yes, most definitely, most definitely. I mean, what I saw, I could not believe my eyes when I saw that unfolding, that the issue of gender-based violence was being used for political points scoring. I mean, it's as plain and simple as that. To see what are supposed to be honourable members of Parliament to use this kind of an issue is really disturbing. And we know now that Malema's wife is taking legal action. We know Malema himself is taking legal action. But apart from that, I think it speaks to really essentially what I saw there was the state of our nation. Women are continuously being used as punching bags. They're continuously being used as scapegoats for politicians, for society in general. We are the most vulnerable, and we continue to be attacked and not protected, essentially. So I think what I saw there was really what the state of our nation really, really is. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how this unfolds, how these court battles unfold. But I don't think our politicians realize just how traumatic this issue is for many South Africans, especially women. What was going on there could really have re-traumatized anybody who has gone through gender-based violence.
I know, and almost done so flippantly. I mean, it also says a lot of what's happening in Parliament. I mean, the disrespect there.
Yes, yes.
There's nothing about let's get down to business.
Yes, I mean, look at us talking about this instead of actually analyzing what was said by our president around how he's going to fix our economy, load shedding, ESCOM, our SOEs being in disarray. We're now basically discussing politicians and their games instead of actually getting down to the nitty-gritty. And I find it very flippant that the ANC is saying that they didn't know that Mamabolo was going to raise such a matter in Parliament, which essentially led the House into chaos. So for me, I think that is very flippant, and I think it also, once again, is an insult to the issue of gender-based violence as well as to women.
Response. Take it seriously. Nandi, in sport today, you were telling me about Sundowns catching up with Chiefs in that.
Mamelodi Sundowns clinched a 2-1 victory over Bloemfontein Celtic. Now, it's good news for Sundowns fans, not such good news for Kaizer Chiefs, because now Kaizer Chiefs are still at the top of the log, but the gap is just 4 points, and 4 points isn't a lot. It's a win and a draw, and Sundowns are on top. So it's becoming interesting to see who is actually going to finish at the top of the Absa Premiership log when the season ends. Wits, on the other hand, they drew, so they're struggling to make any progress with the games that they haven't had. So safe to say that their title dreams are kind of out the window. So it's Sundowns, Chiefs, and maybe Pirates.
And your guess?
I think Chiefs. I mean, I'm just going to go with the team that's on the top of the log right now, and it's Chiefs. So that's the safest bet, right?
Good choice, good choice.
But anything can happen. It is the game of football.
Nandi, Steve, thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.